Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Weisburn Unified Board Meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I need a motion to approve the agenda, please.
I'll move.
Motion.
You have a second?
Neil with, who was the second?
I'll second.
Okay. Wendy?
Yes. Mr. Ben-Willis,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Canetta,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Harbach, would you help us?
I will. Please stand. Place your hand on your heart. There we go. And ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
All right. We have a special presentation, futsal project.
We do.
Blake, would it be appropriate or not to have the public come first, or would you like to have futsal come first?
If we could do futsal first, I think Alex is actually in. He's joining us from New York, so I think it's a late night for him. But your call, Mr. Mora.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
And I don't know, does Chief Ishii on, Wendy? Do you see him?
I don't have him on, but he may be
Okay.
running into the same problem, so I'll go resend.
Okay. So I just want to send a thank you to Chief Ishii for reaching out to Weisburn as a futsal field or mini pitch project was made available through the U.S. Soccer Foundation. We're joined here with Alex Bard, who's, as I said, in New York, and he's representing U.S. Soccer Foundation. So I want to welcome Alex to join us today. He had a cup of coffee, I'm sure, to be ready for this late night here in New York. But, you know, I had a chance to walk yesterday with Nelson and some of our facilities team and Kevin Cornett at Dana to mark out a futsal mini pitch. And I'm going to bring up a presentation because I for one, was not quite sure what it was when we first started talking about it, but definitely appreciative for the opportunity. I wanted to send a sincere thank you to the chief for thinking of us and Alex for his responsiveness throughout this whole process. So let me bring up a presentation here and get going. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So just again, we were lucky enough to have an opportunity to find a place in one of our Weisburn schools in the city of Hawthorne, to put up a mini pitch that was sponsored by the U.S. Soccer Foundation. And so we felt and chose after some deliberation that Dana Middle School would be the best location for that, just because of its location and its and the large plot of land that it's on. So I am going to turn it over to Alex to just share a little bit about the foundation and mini pitches.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Silvers. And thank you all for having me and allowing me to go first. As you know, it is 10 o'clock over here, so it's appreciated. My name is Alex Bard. I'm the director of the Safe Places to Play program with the U.S. Soccer Foundation. Our foundation is a charitable organization based out of Washington, D.C., and our purpose is to grow the game of soccer with a special emphasis on underserved communities. We do that through two of our major programs. One is an after-school soccer program that combines kind of soccer skills with physical activity, nutrition education, and mentorship. And the second program, which we're talking about today, is our Safe Places to Play program, which is our field building initiatives, where we try to bring new soccer spaces to communities or rehab those that are outdated. Our mini pitch, which is our kind of more technical term, but if for those of you who are soccer fans, you might know it as futsal or just a small-sided version of soccer. We have been installing these nationwide over the past 5 years. I created this deck a week ago, so that number 333 is already outdated. We've installed 8 in the past week. So we're in the 340s. We'll be in 350s by the end of the month, which is pretty exciting. And the reason that we look to install projects like this, which are about the size of a traditional tennis or basketball court, is because we find that a lot of the communities we serve don't have those large soccer fields that many of us grew up playing on, or at least don't have access to them, especially for kind of public free play. So these are much more customizable to fit into many different environments, whether it's large cities or rural communities, etc. They come at a much smaller cost, both upfront costs, which are covered by the U.S. Soccer Foundation, and then maintenance costs following that. And they also, frankly, help to increase kind of activity and play, especially for children, ages 13 and below, who just don't need to be running around on a full-size field. This can both improve soccer skills as well as just improve the wellness of a child physically. So what we do at the foundation is we look to connect our funding partners and sponsors with great opportunities on the ground. And how that works is that we're often approached by funders saying we'd like to build in a specific market, a specific state, maybe even a specific school or park. We do our best to honor the desires of our funding partners. We couldn't do the work that we do without them. And that's what brought us to the school district. We had some great conversations working with you all to identify the best space to fit a mini pitch. The one caveat is that we can only build these on current hard court spaces. We don't have the funds to transform grass or dirt spaces into our mini pitches, which is why you see in a lot of the photos, including this one, that that's a conversion of an old outdated tennis court into a mini pitch that was done in Atlanta in June of this year. Once we have a space lined up and all approvals are in place, the physical installation only takes about 2 weeks. The 4-week mark there is maybe a little bit conservative or generous in case we run into a cold front or some rain. Very fortunate that you all, being in Southern California, won't have to deal with a lot of those issues. But truly, we are in and out very quickly with a very quick installation process, as we want to turn this space over back to the community as soon as possible.
So just a little bit about why Dana, and I shared a little bit earlier, but here's a picture of our current field, or our current playground, sorry, with the field. And we thought location and access was really important, was finding a place where parking was there, where we have parking, extensive amount of parking, as well as pedestrian gates. And this location here, if you can see my cursor, this far, we'll call it the far north basketball court, has 2 pedestrian gates that are closed, plus an emergency gate that's just to the north of this picture. That would still allow any emergency vehicles to enter should they need to. We also have a visibility and safety. It's there right on the kind of the corner of the playground where it's accessible to the street and visible from the street, which we think is good for community access and also for the donors, the foundation, and so forth. We believe Dana is our largest community center as well. It's where a lot of our Little Leagues play here, our AYSO teams play here. We have Girl Scouts that meet here and Boy Scouts that meet here. And so it does serve as a community center. It's the largest school in our district, and it has the largest amount of playground space per se. And so we wanted to give an opportunity here to put the mini pitch because we know students love soccer. It's really high usage. We'll get high usage here. The field gets high usage as it relates to soccer. And we think that by adding this specialized place for a mini pitch, in an enclosed, secure manner, that our students and our community would be able to use this space effectively. So we just think that obviously there's long-term opportunities. We know right now it seems a bit odd to build a place where you'd have kids running around in an enclosed area because we're in the middle of a pandemic. But when better of a time to build something and have to install something than when kids aren't on campus. And so this allows, trucks to drive onto a facility, onto a playground, and really get in and out and place the field or the mini pitch here. So did get a chance to walk this site, as I said, with Nelson and others just yesterday, I believe, or within the last couple of days, and marking it out from, if you see this northern basketball court to the second one, you could get a nice space for a futsal field here, or futsal mini pitch in this area. So when we looked at the options, we looked at a couple. We realized the one on the left-hand side, and these renderings came from the U.S. Soccer Foundation. They put these together for us. We found that this one was a little bit too small on the left at 84 by 50. Plus, if you see to the north here, our emergency gates are right here. We just wanted to be sure that we kept access for emergency vehicles. And we also have some hydrants here, or I'm sorry, they're called water backflow and I believe fire access or fire water access, Nelson, if that's correct. Probably using that term wrong. But this
backflow preventer and a fire riser. You got it.
Thank you. And then to the right, though, is I think where we struck the best balance. We have a futsal field or mini pitch that's we think is a really nice size. It fits, and while we're impacting 2 basketball courts, we keep our clearance here for emergency vehicles. Again, you see the parking, good visibility here from 135th. And, we have the opportunity to open our gym and provide a couple extra courts for students to play basketball on during lunch by utilizing our gym that we haven't done in the past. So definitely we don't want to cut out basketball. We know that it's important to our community to have basketball as an option. And this offers futsal plus some additional basketball in the gym. Now I'll turn it back over to Alex.
Yeah, so a bit more on the kind of logistics and details here for those who might be interested, and I'm happy to kind of take questions about any of the details. I know they're really important to understand. What the actual mini pitch is, right? That's important to understand. There's 2 elements to it. There is an acrylic surface, a sports coating surface that goes on the ground. The best example of that would be the nicest tennis court you've played on recently. Maybe not that's clay, but that nice hard court acrylic tennis court. It's that same surface. So it's not a cushion. It's certainly not synthetic turf. It's a different game, futsal, played on hard court, but it does have that acrylic paint with sand mixed in. So there is gripping and friction for safety. The second element is kind of everything above the surface, which is our walled mini pitch system. That includes this kind of galvanized steel structure that you see with the goals built into the walls. Most importantly, it includes LEDs so that you can play in the evening hours. Note that the school controls when those lights are on and off, not the community. So if the lights should not be on past a certain hour, that's your own decision, and it can be done through as easy as an app on your phone. But also somewhere like Southern California where you can have play into the evenings when it's warm enough, it certainly is an advantage to have lights. It includes lockable storage, so you can keep your soccer equipment on site, as well as some benches for spectators. And I didn't put this on here, but it even has cup holders because we threw those in there just for fun. The whole thing comes in actually 9 different sizes, 3 lengths and 3 widths. The idea being that we want to utilize as much space as possible so that it can fit within your space. You don't have to fit within our sizes. So as you just saw from the previous slide, we talked about a couple different options of sizes. We love the bigger the better. It sounds like there's a similar idea here to increase the size when possible. Assuming we get your approval, the next step, just to let everyone know, would be a donation agreement that would come from the U.S. Soccer Foundation to the school district, just stating that you're accepting the mini pitch. It's valued at $100,000 in terms of the donation amount. and we would execute that between our legal teams. And then we would look to install this, hopefully starting around the 1st of November, or as close to that as possible. There is, excitement to get these projects done quickly. And like we talked about, there's a pretty quick turnaround time for the actual installation. And hopefully this is good news for the facilities team, the school district. We, the foundation, handle all of the actual management of the project. So we're hiring the vendors, we're paying them. We are, of course, working with the school district on right of entry access and scheduling, but ultimately, hopefully it's not a very large lift from anyone's time. There's obviously a lot going on right now within the school district and all school districts in this country. We want to take on as much of the work as we can. And as you've heard, we're building 100 of these this year. We're very comfortable doing that in a pretty quick and safe way. Lastly, and we'll flip to the next slide, it's important to talk about who the funder of every project is. We would never ask for approval without an understanding of the funding partners of this project. So I want to kind of back up here and give you a little bit of context. The MLS, the professional league in the United States, Major League Soccer, when everything shut down due to coronavirus, all of the leagues in March and April, and this group came together to play games in Orlando, one of those kind of grouped atmospheres. That was obviously came right after a lot of the social unrest and social justice issues around George Floyd. A group of Black players from MLS formed an organization called the Black Players for Change. And they kind of unveiled their coalition and their goals in June and July. We, the foundation, have sought to work with them immediately because our goals and theirs intertwine, really to remove the barriers that keep children of color from playing the game of soccer, from experiencing, what everyone else may have, and allowing them to use the game to better themselves, whether it's, nutritionally, physically, educationally, etc. So about 2.5 weeks ago, we publicly launched this initiative. We're going to build 12 of these mini pitches. It'll be identical to what you're seeing in front of you around the country. The reason we're doing 12 is that there are 12 members of the executive board of this organization. There's over 100 members, which comprise of both MLS players and executives who are all African-American. And we are looking to build one in each of the 12 hometowns of the executive board of this organization. So there's a player, his name is Kamara. He was actually born in Sierra Leone. He immigrated to the United States with his family, and they settled in Hawthorne. He played college soccer nearby. I apologize, I'm blanking on the school name that he played his college soccer, but he's been playing professionally ever since. He actually just got traded like last week from the Colorado Rapids to the Minnesota United. So he's playing in Minnesota right now, but Hawthorne is his home, and due to the nature of how often players get traded and signed, they wanted to make commitments to their home, their hometowns where they grew up, not where they currently reside. So we love that story, and there will be 11 other pitches just like yours coming as soon as next week through 2021.
I can just add, he actually went to CSU Dominguez Hills. That was his college.
Whereas you saw some of the other pictures that we've shown today, you saw some corporate sponsorships on there. Dick's Sporting Goods is a large funder of the foundation, et cetera. We've agreed to reduce corporate branding on this pitch because of the importance of the message we want to send. So you're not going to see a bunch of new corporate sponsors being thrown on the pitch left and right. If we add anyone, of course, that will be approved by the school district before we do anything. But as of right now, and I can tell you, I saw pictures of the first pitch going down this morning. This is the look. If you look a little bit carefully at the top image, there are signboards across the sidelines. Those will be images of each of the players of the executive board. So it'll have a very soccer-focused theme here. There's not kind of a corporate advertising play. But this is what the pitch will look like when it's in the ground. And of course, we'll share photos of the first ones completed so you can see a more live image. And is there one more slide on here, Blake?
Sorry.
Okay. And just to kind of let you know a little bit about the data we've collected around these projects and why we believe in them so much. So like I said, we've built about 330 plus of these over the last 5 years. We've collected a lot of data around how they've impacted communities generally. So I just want to share with you some of our kind of top line data points. Ones we're obviously particularly proud of, that 94% believe that the mini pitch serves as a community hub, which means it's not just for kids playing soccer, but it's for communities to come together. That about a third of the children playing are new to the sport, which we think is fantastic, that we're offering new sport opportunities to children around the country. And then that, almost 3 hours of additional play is made possible by those LED and the ability to play at night safely with lights on. So obviously we believe in this product, but not only do we believe in it, but we have the data to back up why they are so impactful. And last thing I'll leave you with, for those of you who are familiar with Hawthorne, is the mini pitch generally is not new to the city of Hawthorne, due to the generosity and the hard work of the Hawthorne Police Department, along with some partners like the local LA team, the Galaxy. There are, I believe, 5 mini pitches in Hawthorne as we speak, at 2 different park sites. We thought it would be wonderful to include mini pitches at schools as well as parks in Hawthorne. So that's why we thought to come to the school district to identify sites. But obviously this is something that has been kind of tried and true in your community. And we are excited about bringing another pitch to the Hawthorne community.
And I do think Chief Ishii is on. I don't think he's able to be on video or sound yet. But I mean, just want to thank him if he can hear us.
Yep, I'm here. Thanks.
Oh, there he is. Hey,
Yep.
Chief.
How are you?
Great.
Yeah, I just couple things here. Sorry, I'm in my car. I had to pull over. Apologize for the ghost figure here, but it's been a while since we met with the board. I appreciate all the support, and this has been an exciting project that we've been a part of. I can just tell you from the, as Alex mentioned, of the other pitches that are in our parks in Hawthorne, and they've been there for a while. And this is really a true opportunity for kids, and also as us as police officers and parents and adults, to really come together and find a true community atmosphere and be able to make a difference in the parks that they're at right now. We have kids coming with their homework, and they love to hang out there. And it's our commitment, as far as from the police department, to make sure that this continues to be a safe place, but also a collaborative place, especially with the message and the importance of it, especially in this time. We look at this as an opportunity for conversation, but also an opportunity for our young students, our children, our community members to get together and through sports to be able to collaborate and have a safe place. That's our commitment, is really to keep this a safe place, but also beyond that, hopefully an opportunity for us to communicate and have conversations. So we're looking forward to this. It's in a great part of town, great supportive community. We hope that this will be a long-term partnership, but fortunately, we've had a great relationship with Alex, with the Galaxy, with Major League Soccer, and because of our track record and the efforts that we have put in, the commitment that we have put in, I think this will be a great opportunity for all of us to share as a community. So thank you very much for having us on. I just wanted to say hello and offer my support and commitment to this project.
Thank you, Chief Ishii and Alex. Any board members have any questions?
I have a question, Israel. Just a clarification, or Blake, maybe you can share with us, and I think Alex Sparta, he talked about it a little bit in terms of the financing and the cost, just for those people that are listening in. If Blake, if you can share what that portion is, what would be the cost to Wiseburn? I think I understand it, but for the benefit of the folks that may be watching that have not been in some of the conversations before that we have, if you can share that that process or that cost, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure, and I'll probably turn that over to Alex a little bit, but I will say that the U.S. Soccer Foundation basically creates the acrylic. They create the foundation, they lay the acrylic, and it's an installation of the gates or the surrounding enclosure, basically top to bottom. And there's no cost to the district at all, except for some of the upkeep, the minor upkeep over time, just that you would have normal wear and tear on a playground and such. So. Very, very little to no cost to the district, especially at startup. But I'll turn it over to Alex for more specifics.
Yeah, thank you, Blake. As I said, as I noted, the value of the mini pitch, the money we've raised for is $100,000, and that is entirely covered by the U.S. Soccer Foundation. The walled system has a warranty of 10 years on it. So we do not expect you to have to spend any money on upkeep on the walled system. We think that will last much longer than 10 years. It'll probably last longer than any of us on this call. That thing is about 10,000 pounds of galvanized steel. But if anything comes up, our partners who manufacture and install this product out of their company in Iowa are incredibly responsive to any issues that might come up. Frankly, above and beyond what a warranty would cover. They're really bought into what we believe in as well. On the surface side, as we noted, there might be some small repairs or maintenance that you all may want to budget for, but it's certainly not required. You saw the photos of the current basketball courts. We're going to do our best to treat those cracks and uneven surfaces as much as we can, but as we know, you can't stop cracking from happening on blacktops forever. Our best guess, kind of based on our history, is within a year or two, you might see a few hairline cracks start to return. You likely won't need to think about resurfacing for about 3 to 5 years at the earliest. Again, we hope it will be longer than that. But in terms of playability, we think you're talking about 5 years plus before you would need to devote funds in terms of potentially this becoming an unsafe space at all. We don't require you to put a budget together. If a crack appears and it's aesthetically unappealing but playable, that's totally up to the school district and what your capacity is. We're not going to come back and expect you to have to put in your own dollars after the fact to do any sort of significant upkeep on it.
Thank you.
Continuing on that question, thank you, Alex. That was, this board has always been, this is super exciting, by the way, very tremendously exciting. Chief Ishii, thank you very much. Alex, thank you. Obviously, one thing we're been proud of is that we have maintenance funds, that we don't saddle those behind us with a future bill. Is there a suggested maintenance? I'm not sure I understood your last comment as to 10 years. I heard a 10-year warranty, particularly on the surface. Is there a suggested maintenance amount we would need ongoing? Help us there.
Yeah, when we've been asked that plenty, what we would tell you is to budget about $500 annually for maintenance.
Really?
Yeah, and if your facilities team owns power washers, then drop that number down pretty significantly. But genuinely, the maintenance recommendation is power wash it twice a year, and then keep it clear when leaves or acorns or sticks stick to the surface, because those will tear up a little bit of the paint. That's genuinely as kind of simple as it can be. We have a maintenance guide that we will provide you, but the general rule of thumb is treat it as you treat your tennis courts, in terms of both daily or regular maintenance, as well as what you might budget for in terms of treating the surface.
Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you again, Alex. And
I just wanted to make a quick comment. I also wanted to thank Chief Ishii and Alex Bard for bringing this wonderful opportunity here to Wiseburn community, and being a soccer player myself through AYSO and high school. This is fantastic, and the cause behind it is even even better. So thank you, thank you both. And Blake, just so you know, I have a power washer that I can certainly lend you. So definitely lower that maintenance cost.
I wanted to also thank Chief Ishii for thinking of us for this project and also for your service to our community, because we really, really appreciate that as well. And thank you to our partners here for thinking of us and for coming to Weisburn with this opportunity. You know, there's a lot of barriers to communication in this life, but sports seems to cross those barriers. It doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter what, you know, if you're tall or small, whatever, you seem to be able to play sports together. I've seen a lot of people play basketball together. We see a lot of people play soccer together. And it seems to cross those barriers. And I think, as Chief Ishii was saying, people talk about things and communicate. So this is a wonderful opportunity for communication, for activity, for athletics. It sort of brings a lot of pieces together that are really important for students and for community members. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. All right, if we could end that. Again, Alex and Chief Ishii, thank you so much. You're welcome to go and get a good night's sleep.
Thank you also.
Alex, thank you, Chief.
All right.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully, hopefully we'll meet in person again soon. It's been too long. Amazing. But thank you again. I just want to close real quick. The message is truly unique compared to other pitches. This is a powerful opportunity for these things. So beyond just the pitch and just the physical nature of what we're doing here, I think the message and the opportunities here are going to far outlast just having this here. So this is a really a great opportunity. And what more powerful message can we do when we have these conversations right at the field there? And I think that would be that's probably the intent and the goal of what they're trying to do here. We embrace the message and we want to be a part of it. And this is a great opportunity. So thank you again. Hope to meet you guys soon. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. All right, moving on. Public hearing, textbooks and instructional materials. We will open at 9:24. Blake, do you have any comments?
I'm sorry. No, I don't.
Okay. Any?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say public comments, Israel? You were cutting out. I'm sorry.
No. This is the public hearing for textbooks and instructional.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, Eileen does. Eileen has a comment.
I do. You know, we are using several new online venues this year, but we did not formally adopt them. This was a one-year program that we're enlisting to support our teachers and our students. It is not a full adoption, so you won't see that included in any of the paperwork.
Thank you. Wendy, any public comments on this?
Not on this specifically, no.
Okay, we'll close at 7:35.
Israel, it looks like we're getting some text comments, some chat comments. Excuse me.
Would you like me to read that, Mr. Moore?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, we have a comment chat from Ms. Bronwyn Shields. Texas schools are eliminating certain figures from textbooks. Other states will likely follow suit, as Texas is the largest purchaser of books, e.g. Helen Keller, Hillary Clinton, etc. What will you do to ensure that our students are exposed to accurate history?
So I can respond to that. We are, the standards for social studies or history have not yet been adopted in California. So we are watching that closely. And we do have a commitment in our district to be completely careful with how we approach that curriculum. So particularly in the middle schools where we do American history and ancient world. So we're in tune to it. We are not adopting it this time. The standards just haven't been approved in our state. We do have a framework, but no standards.
Okay, any other comments? No? All right, moving on from the public. In accordance with Board Bylaw 9323C, individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board. The board shall limit total time to 20 minutes. Wendy?
Yes, I have 4 comments this evening. The first comment is from Emma Martin. I propose we change the name of the former Peter Burnett Elementary School, 138th Street School, after Ruth Bader Ginsburg to honor her after her passing. Harley Hoff. The community has created a petition to rename 138th Street School after Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It is my understanding that the naming process for the 138th Street School is to begin in October. I would like to put on record a request to rename the school after Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg be submitted. RBG's life work is something to be proud of and to acknowledge. We would like to be one of the first schools in the nation to have the honor of her namesake for our school. Bronwyn Shields. I am writing to ask the school board to consider naming 138th Street School after the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a woman of honor, a woman of courage, a woman of dignity, a woman who fought for all women and for justice for all Americans. Her intelligence, wit, and wisdom are legendary. She stood for inclusivity and the freedom to follow one's own abilities. 2 decisions she made have directly impacted my life. With the Virginia versus Virginia Military Institute, VMI decision, the High Court effectively struck down any law which, as Justice Ginsburg wrote, denies to women, simply because they are women, full citizenship stature, equal opportunity to aspire, achieve, participate in, and contribute to society. As a woman, this has obvious implications. Olmstead versus LC is the most important civil rights decision for people with disabilities in our country's history. With this decision, the court explained that, first, institutional placement of persons who can handle and benefit from community settings perpetuates unwarranted assumptions that persons so isolated are incapable of or unworthy of participating in community life. And second, confinement in an institution severely diminishes the everyday life activities of individuals, including family relations, social contacts, work options, economic independence, educational advancement, and cultural enrichment. This judgment paved the way for my son to live in his community and have the supports he will need to thrive. These 2 cases highlight how Ruth Bader Ginsburg has touched my life personally. Naming our community school after her would reflect the ideals of our community, that of diversity, courage, and inclusivity. These are ideals that all Americans should aspire towards. Thank you for your time and consideration. Rebecca Homburg-Cappy. I'm writing to express my support for the petition being circulated to rename 138th Street School for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Justice Ginsburg, as a Jewish woman, daughter of immigrants, and civil rights lawyer, led a life that is the antithesis of Peter Burnett, for whom the school was previously named. Justice Ginsburg's life was a testament to the Jewish value of tikkun olam, repairing tears in the community and making things better for people less fortunate, as the justice herself described it. I believe this value is also shared by our Wiseburn community and would love to be able to teach our children about this through learning about RBG as the namesake of their school. I look forward to hearing more about the renaming process.
Good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much from everyone who wrote in. From the board, Joanne, Ms. Kaneda?
Thank you. My way of getting exercise is to walk around our neighborhood. And so I've had an opportunity to be walking and talking to a lot of our community members lately. And they've been sharing about their ideas, about renaming the schools, about how distance learning is going, about why can't we have the kids playing in the playgrounds, and just a lot of different concerns that the community has. And I just wanted to offer to the community that the board is very concerned about a lot of the same things that they are. And we really appreciate them coming forward with their thoughts, their recommendations, some of the things that are working for them or not working for them in this time of COVID, and trying to distance teach and distance learn for our students. So I know it's a very difficult time for our community. It's a very difficult time for us as individuals, as members of the community too, and as part of the workforce, and trying to support our staff and our students, and our keeping people healthy and keeping them safe, which is the high priority, of course, and also helping them to learn. So it's amazing how we're able to communicate through this time, even though many of us are behind closed doors. it seems like we're still finding ways to reach out and communicate. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that. I get more text messages and more emails and less face-to-face with people, but we're still communicating, and I'm happy that's happening, and I would like to see it continue. So I just want to say thanks for that.
Thank you, Ms. Caneda. Mr. Martinez?
Thank you, Joanne. Well said. I agree. These are difficult times during this pandemic for all of us. I certainly, as we are underway here, 1 month into the school year, I certainly want to just say thank you to everybody for all their hard work, particularly the teachers. I know this has been a difficult time for teachers to deliver education in this manner. It's not the ideal situation that any of us envisioned, obviously, as Joanne's mentioned, but I know they're doing the best they can, along with parents and students that are obviously standing during this difficult time. So again, I certainly want to thank everybody during this difficult time as we move forward, and it's moments like this tonight that you know, hearing the U.S. soccer and Chief Ishii talk about. It's moments like this that we certainly appreciate the partnership and working together. And, you know, together we'll get through this difficult time. And I think that's the kind of the message that I want to relay tonight. We'll get through this, and certainly appreciate Chief Ishii and the U.S. Soccer for what they're doing and bringing to our community during this difficult time. And then at the same time, I appreciate the comments from the public here with regards to the naming of the school. Like Joanne said, I think there's obviously a lot of energy on this in terms of moving forward with the name, and I think that will be addressed. But I certainly appreciate the public comments. Ruth Ginsburg was an amazing lady, an advocate for gender equality and women's rights and so forth, and certainly embodies the ideals of Weisburn. So again, thank you to the public for those comments as well.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Dr. Goldman?
Thank you, Mr. Mora. I echo those comments. Again, thank you. I always want to say thank you. Thank you to the teachers. Thank you to the community. We are better when we work together and give grace to one another and patience. And I know we're working through this, and thank you. I want to dedicate my time tonight primarily to the outstanding work of the Weisburn Ed Foundation and to recognize them. President Ann Tittle and your wonderful team have taken so many things on. I want to share with you some of the great things they're doing. I had the privilege of going to their meeting the other night, and again reminded what wonderful contributions they're making to our community. For example, they're partnering us with the district on our science specialist, our teacher on special assignment, Joanne Michaels, with science. They're supporting keyboarding without tears, music instruction in all grades, trying to give, especially in this excuse me, COVID-19 distance learning time, to support materials and supplies. Bringing visual arts to K-5 through a $15,000 commitment to fund art supply boxes available for students during distance learning. This week, thank you teachers Ruby Del Rio and Lauren Shackstad, Coach Shackstad, to learn about supporting Stride Track, to bring that to all of our K-5 kids. We've pretty much had it at Anza very successfully, now bringing it to our all K-5 throughout the district, and hopefully that will go forward. Just really exciting. And then one thing that I think we may not have remembered at the board, just really want to celebrate, is this year Dr. Silvers recognized all teachers as the Teacher of the Year because of the outstanding rising to the occasion. And in honor of that, the Weisburn Ed Foundation gave $100 to every certificated teacher and service provider to start the year. So just a beautiful gesture. I encourage you to, their annual fund is going on now. All donations are appreciated. They are getting funding. Thank you, community, for that. To learn more, go to the Weisburn Education Foundation website. Follow them on Instagram, Weisburn Ed Foundation, Facebook, Weisburn Education Foundation. And things you can do that cost nothing is go to smile.amazon.com. And when you do your Amazon purchases, designate Weisburn Ed Foundation as your recipient of their donations. And if you shop at Ralph's, sign up for Kroger's program as well. So thank you, Ed Foundation, for the fantastic things you're doing for our district. And I just wanted to use my time for that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. Mr. Banuelos?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mora. I have a couple of comments today. First one, I wanted to follow up with regards to from our last board meeting. Wanted to ensure and see if there was a follow-up with regards to our students to ensure that they have the internet access. We had a conversation with regards to making sure that they either had their Chromebooks or their internet devices. I asked for a follow-up to ensure that there's access to the curriculum and instruction due to the distance learning. I want to make sure that obviously that everybody does have that access and hear about how it's going, right? Obviously everybody's in a different situation with different parental supports and attention from our teachers and staff. So if I could get an update on that, I would really appreciate that. In particular, the access, because if our students can't access the curriculum, then clearly they're not learning, they're not in the classrooms, although be it virtually. So if I could have an update on that to start, I'd greatly appreciate that. And then the next item I wanted to just comment with regards to the naming of the 138th Street. I know Dr. Silvers, you're going to have a brief update for us today. One of my comments that I would have is that we definitely look at the renaming of 138th as an opportunity to select a name that really embodies the values of our community moving forward now and into the future. In addition, I would invite not only our community but everybody else to really think about the names of our other schools. For example, the Conquistadors, they do not have, in my opinion, a very reputable past or a history. And quite frankly, in my mind, it's quite offensive. So I would look to us to have an open mind as to not only rename 138th Street, but also consider possibly renaming some of our other school sites that don't have such a history. Nothing against the background and history of the schools or the teachers or students that have attended. There's a lot to be proud of there, and I thank everybody for that. However, I do think in history, we're in an inflection moment where it is a time where we're all doing some soul searching and looking at our own values and what we believe in. I do think that this creates an opportunity to just do some self-reflection. I'm not saying let's do that. I would like to start the conversation with regards to that, though. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Banuelos. I think you all spoke very beautifully, and I'm going to hold my comments. Thank you very much. All right, from the Chief Business Official.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. Wendy, can I share my screen? I have a few comments tonight. Hold on 1 second.
Actually, while David is doing that, I would like to update the community that both the Weisburn board members and the Vinci board members interviewed 6 candidates from 18 that applied. We chose the top 6. And out of that will be an announcement soon about who was selected for those positions. Should be in the next couple of days as everybody is notified. We'll put something out for everyone to know. Okay, so I just wanted to let the community know about that. Good process. It was a wonderful group of people, and I really appreciate everyone who applied and took the time. The decision was extremely difficult. So thank you. David, you ready?
Yes, sir. Sorry about that delay. So the board had asked about the roof repairs or roof conditions at all of our school sites, and so I had Mr. Bill Denny, our maintenance manager, get a couple different quotes, and so got 2 different quotes. One was from Commercial Roofing, the other was from Best, and you can see the lowest prices for Cabrillo and Dana were from Commercial, and the lowest prices for Anza.
Excuse me, Dave. The charts are not showing. We see a file name, but not the chart.
Geez. Okay, sorry about that. Wendy, could you bring it up? I don't be able to see it on mine.
Sure. Go ahead and pull yours down. I'll bring it up for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Sorry about that. Everyone can see it now?
Yes,
Yeah.
much better. Thank you.
Okay. So again, asked Bill Denny to get a few different quotes on repairing, actually evaluating and repairing our current roof situations. And so commercial roofing and Best responded. The lowest prices for Anza and 138th Street came in from Best. And then the lowest prices for Cabrillo and Dana were commercial roofing. And I want to point out this discrepancy between commercial and Best at 138th. Commercial roofing proposed to do a whole new coating of like an asphalt / composite like surface. I asked Bill if he felt that was necessary, and he said no. There's no current reports of any leakage other than at the NPR of the 138 school. He felt that just the repairs, the power washing and the repairs alone would be fine. Don't need to include a whole new surfacing. So in total, if you did the two Cabrillo and Dana with commercial, that'd be just over $94,000. And if you did Anza and 138th with Best, it'd be almost $61,000 for a total of just over $155,000. If you could scroll down a little bit, Wendy. So as of September 14th, I wanted to show you what we have in our resources available. So we have some restricted community redevelopment funds, which are specifically to be used for deferred maintenance, routine restricted maintenance. Fund 14, deferred maintenance, $417,000. We still have some bond funds available, about $66,000 in Measure E, and about $342,000 in Measure A. So total resources as of middle of September, 1.4. Some other current projects we're looking at completing in the next near term. The Anza clocks and PA system, about $60,000. 138th Street needs 2 HVAC complete overhauls, about $18,000. We've got one quote so far for the Cabrillo exterior paint at $81,000. We're still waiting for 1 or 2 more quotes to come in. And then Dana is needing about 2 more HVAC units for an additional $184,000. So if you take the 155 and the 184, we're looking at about $340,000 to spend in the near term, which is well below our resources available of 1.4. So with that, I would make a recommendation to the board to go ahead and pursue these 2 different vendors to do the evaluations and repairs, and get these repairs done before the weather comes.
I also like the idea of getting the repairs done while we're still in this mode of distance learning, because it's a lot easier for folks to move around and get things done without hurting any, without safety problems or equipment being moved around and so on. So are these funds replenishable? These funds that we're looking at as a source of funds for this work, are they? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Joanne. Yes, go ahead.
No, I think you knew what I was trying to get at. Are the funds replenishable, or once we use them, they're gone, or how does this work?
So the restricted community redevelopment funds those are, they are rechargeable, or they get, repurposed every year. It just depends. Usually we get about anywhere from $300 to $400,000 a year in additional funds. Deferred maintenance funds, we get these funds by our piggybacks. So those are replenishable, but the 2 bond funds, those are not replenishable. Once those are spent, they're spent.
Okay.
So, Dave, I agree with your recommendation. I think we should move forward with the roof. It's important. It protects our investments, really our bond investments with regards to the respective school sites. One question that I had are in terms of the 155 that you're proposing, are you proposing that we utilize Fund 14 deferred maintenance for this work, or are you specifically just drawing it from the 1.4?
I would probably use the restricted community redevelopment funds, the first one, because we're getting more of those replenished than we are the deferred maintenance from the piggybacks.
Okay.
All right.
Can you scroll up, please, on the top page? My question has to do with any kind of warranty. The comments you made about not recommending, Bill's not recommending, is that Best's position as well? Commercial roofing may have recommended with Best also. And are these comparable in warranty and quality?
Both vendors came highly recommended from all nearby school districts. They said these are 2 of the best roofing companies that are doing roofing repairs on schools. I'm not too sure about the warranties. I can definitely look at the proposals and see what's included. But yeah, Bill didn't think that the 138 needed a whole new coating as commercial had proposed. He felt that just the power wash and the sealing of any cracks, any flashings would be sufficient. And they're going to go ahead and as they do this, they water check and make sure there's no leaks as well.
I know Roger and Nelson, I kind of defer to you on this as your area of expertise. And if the warranty would cover that issue anyway, then I'd be totally comfortable with it. But I think I'd like to see the what we're covered for. And
I think I'll make one quick comment. These are two reputable roofing companies in the industry. So I am aware of them. I'm actually doing work with one of them at a separate school district. With regards to the warranty, that's a little bit more complicated, Neil. They will definitely warranty the work they're doing. And I don't know exactly whether that'll be a year or 3 years or 5 years. However, they probably will not warranty the roof because they did not actually provide the roof. Typically, those roofs have a 20-25-year warranty when they come initially. So that's what I suspect that Dave is going to hear back.
If time is important, Blake and David, we could look at putting this on the special meeting we're going to have next week, along with the other items. So think about that. If it's important, we could go ahead and do that.
I really would like to see that info prior to me voting, just so I know what I voted for.
And I have a question. Dave, you had mentioned that there were some leakage at the multipurpose room at 138th Street School, I think you said. There was some water leaking. So I'm sorry.
Yes,
so
there's some leakage above the NPR near the kitchen.
Okay. So the idea, of course, is that this roofing process would fix the leakage problem and so on, right?
Absolutely. And any leakage at any other schools, I know there's been some concern at ANZA.
Yes.
And they would alleviate any of those leaks.
That's
okay, good.
Dave, that's an interesting one. NPR is fairly new, right?
I know. I was concerned about that too, Nelson. That was right.
10 years old, and I think I don't know how long the warranty was, but I assume it was under 10 years. I think Bill had already reached out, and the warranty was already up. But I can certainly double check on that.
Dave, I was recommend that we would take a look at that first with regards to the existing warranties, because when the multipurpose room at 138th was done, it's not over 10 years or 20 years for that matter. Most warranties are, like Nelson said, 20, 25 years or so. That one should still be under warranty unless it's, as with all warranties, there's a lot of uncovered events. But so we'd have to take a look at that because they're not all inclusive. There's always something in those warranties, but I think we should start there to see if that's actually covered by the original installers, because it's not that old.
Okay, I'll definitely look into that.
Okay.
And Dave, just again, comparing these two bids, just to make sure we have apples to apples. Low price is not always the best option. Not that I want to spend more than we have to, but let's just make sure we got apples to apples, please. Thank you.
David, anything else?
Yes, a few more items. Wendy, if you could bring up the recommended reserve deck slide. So at the last board meeting, Dr. Goldman requested staff look into an adequate and appropriate level of reserves and a justification that would back that up. I'll kind of go over those now. If you go to the next slide, Wendy. I did some research over the last couple of weeks. The California Department of Education has established a set of formal criterion standards to guide the development and review of local school agency budget reports and monitoring of their fiscal stability. These criterion standards include the following criteria for reserves. The greater of 5% or $65,000 for districts with 0 to 300 ADA. The greater of 4% or $65,000 for districts with 301 to 1,000 ADA. 3% for districts with 1,001 to 30,000 ADA, and I highlighted that because that's where we fall in. The larger you get, the less reserve required. So 2% for districts with 30,001 to 400,000 ADA, and then 1% for districts with more than 400,001 ADA. please note the reserve levels are only the minimum that are required by the CDE. And we've certainly talked as a board that 3% is not nearly sufficient enough for what we would like to have as reserves. Next slide. So what is the purpose of a reserve? A reserve is identified amount of cash that is available to handle contingencies as they arise. In other words, the reserve is a safety net that allows an LEA to meet its obligations as unplanned changes in revenues and expenditures occur. LEAs in California have very little control over revenues, as we've seen in recent months, as those are many controlled by the state and the federal government. LEAs have much more control over expenses. Some can be planned for and budgeted, but others cannot be anticipated. A reserve fund allows an LEA to continue to meet its obligations even when hit with unexpected expenses. And lastly, it is important to note that reserves are one-time in nature. Once they're used, they are not replenished except by purposeful action of the LEA. Next slide, please. What should be considered in setting a reserve level or level of reserves? The most significant consideration in setting a reserve level is not so much related to the size of the LEA, but rather what is related to the unique demographics of the LEA. And I would say that the level of risk differs on this basis. Some risk factors include declining enrollment, which obviously reduces revenue and requires purposeful action each year to cut expenses. Deficit spending, either in recent years, the current budget year, and/or multi-year projections, as deficit spending directly depletes reserves and requires action to mitigate. Small LEA size, as small LEAs don't have the economies of scale or budget capacity to absorb unexpected financial events. Limited sources, for example, to pay for things like technology upgrades or replacement and deferred maintenance projects. Potential for exposure, this could be such as items as lawsuits, high-cost special education placements, and then a potential increase to liabilities, such as increased retire benefit liabilities. Next slide, please. So
Dave,
what is an adequate reserve level? The national government, yes.
Dave, real quick, going back to that slide, you know, our biggest risk going into next year, 2021-22, is already what we know from the state. You know, right now is planning on some probably significant cuts to education. Where would that fall? Would you call it under limited sources, or where does it fall in this category?
I would say it's under declining enrollment. So if you have declining enrollment, your revenues are obviously decreasing. And so another bullet point could be included is, you know, just the uneasiness or the unsuredness of how the state and the federal government and even local revenue is going to be funded in the out years.
Yeah, Dave, and I would add too that it's probably, you're looking at deficit spending as well when you're looking 3 years out. So you're also looking at, you know, could be an impact to the structural, you know, the structure of your budget. Correct. You want to take a look at that.
Yeah, I would just want to say, I would just, I guess, point out that knowing what we're going into kind of in the, not only next year, but the outer years, like you mentioned, Blake, this might not necessarily be captured. I think our biggest risk right now is state, potential state funding cut.
A good point.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. So again, what is an adequate reserve level? The National Government Finance Officers Association published a best practice report, which included the following. A foremost policy should be established by the LEA that specifies the level of reserves, how reserves will be increased or decreased during a set time frame, and then how reserves will be replenished if used below the prescribed level. At a minimum, regardless of an LEA size, no less than 2 months of general fund expenditures be set aside for reserves. Based on our 1920 on actuals that were approved in September, 2 months of expenses would be approximately $5 million, or about a 17% reserve.
Yeah, can we just hold there for a sec, Dave, too? Because that 3% earlier was just insane to me. That's 2 weeks. We'd survive on 2 weeks of expenses.
Yeah, that's. I mean, if you compare it to your household savings account, obviously you'd want to have more than 2 weeks of a cushion in case anything would happen.
Right,
so yes,
sorry, but I just
think the reserves.
It makes more sense. Thank you.
It's a ridiculous criteria, Neil. I agree with you 100%.
Thank you. Go ahead. Sorry.
So 1920 unaudited actuals with Fund 1 and Fund 17 combined we had approximately $2.3 million, or about a 7.6 reserve designated as a reserve. The most recent statewide data is from 1819, and it shows an average reserve level for unified districts in California was 17.6 and 20.47% for elementary districts.
And Dave, as a unified school district in the state of California, we are one of the smaller ones, correct?
Correct.
So typically.
And one could even argue, we're almost operating as an elementary district because the Da Vinci's are, our high school option.
Right. Then that was my point, is that we would probably be we would want to be closer to that 20% on the higher end.
That's right. I agree.
Okay, continue, David.
So do you have, by any chance, like a 5-year record? I'm sure you have this information and probably don't have it in this presentation tonight, but over the last 5 years, let's say, or even be good to look at 10 years, because over 10 years, we'll probably pull in some of the 2008, 9, 10 recession where monies were so tight. It would be nice to look at if we're in some sort of cycle. Are we in some sort of, is it really each year stands alone, or, to sort of dig into when the reserves are not as high as we would like them, sort of what happened. And was it sort of the items you mentioned in the previous chart that contribute to low reserves, did we experience those, or did we have some other problem that perhaps we could address?
Yeah, I don't have that in that presentation, but I do have it handy, and I can certainly send it out to the board with some further analysis, and even present at the next board meeting if that's helpful.
If you could present, I think the community would probably like to see that too. And I think this is how we learn, right? This is how we understand what we're doing and how we make decisions, understanding the sort of flow of commitments and the interrelationship of commitments, financial commitments that we make. I would like to see those trends and understand the factors that have gone into the trends over time.
Absolutely.
And then Joanne, if I may too, I think that one of the things, if we go back and look back and learn from that, I think moving forward, it'd be good for us to plan forward, obviously, what the next 5 years may look like and how we can, achieve a reserve level that is, that's reasonable and then responsible.
Correct, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that's how we learn, right? That's how you look at the past and why things happened the way they did, and it really impacts our decision making.
Yeah.
And I recollect a period, Dave, if you remember, that we worked closely on this. I agree with you, Joanne. You can't look at the reserves independently, just on a year-to-year basis. And I remember we worked on this really shortly right after the recession, where we made a goal, Dave, if you remember, yourself and Tom and we talked about, and we did. We worked on a plan to get the reserves up, and I believe we got it up to 17%. But to your point, Joanne, it takes years. It takes a 5-year plan or something, and I think that's where we're going to have to revisit this and kind of get on a similar plan.
Yeah, for sure. I think it would really help us, because a lot of times when we're asked to approve expenditures for, like tonight, with the roofs and the HVAC and so on, obviously those are important decisions. We have to protect our property, all in our, it's all good. And I think what would help us with this kind of discussion is the context in which we're making those decisions. And you gave us a lot of that today by talking about the funds that were the source for those expenditures. But I think there's even a bigger picture than that, which is kind of what we're heading for right here.
Okay. I think in the spirit of time, if we could move forward, since we're going to have a presentation on this next time.
I have a question for Dave that's not related to this presentation.
Go ahead.
Is that okay? When we got the COVID funding from the various sources, from the state and from the government, was there a deadline of September 30th
December 31, as I remember.
It's December. Okay. I couldn't remember if there was a September deadline for some of those funds.
Like Dr. Goldman said, December 30th for the lion's share. I think we, in total, we got just over $1.4 million, and I think 1.1 is to be spent by December 30th. And I know
Okay.
we talked about this before. There's a lot of advocacy going on in Sacramento, DC, to extend that deadline.
Okay.
But there's been no traction as of yet.
I think I was confused between government fiscal years and calendar years for that spending.
Dan,
It's a
it
calendar
I think
year.
that the,
it may have been an administrative requirement of September 30th. Is that correct, Blake?
I'm sorry, you were cutting out, Nelson.
Was it, Joanne, in response to Joanne's question, I know the funding is December 31st, but I think there may have been some kind of plan or administrative requirement due date, right? By September 30th is maybe.
Right, so we had our LCP plan that needed to be
Okay.
approved, or by September 30th, but also there's other funds. The rest of the funds need to be spent, I believe, by September 15th of 2021. Isn't that right? We've mentioned that a couple times, or by September 30th of the following year, Dave, is that correct?
Right, so there's a little bit more funds that have an expiration date of September 30th, 2021. And then there's just a little pocket of money that right now has no expiration date. So obviously the one with no expiration date is the last money that we'll spend.
And do we have a pretty good track? Because, okay, so we're at the end of September, end of December. We all know what happens when we hit like early October. The rest of the year just sort of goes by really fast. So do we have a sense of those monies and how that's going to be spent, that has a deadline of December?
Right, we do. We've presented the COVID budget. A lot of the purchases we're going to make are one time in nature. Obviously PPE. We purchased the ASU and all these other online instructional programs that are one time in nature. And so, yeah, a lot of that stuff is going to be purchased and has been purchased before the December 30th cutoff.
Okay, I think it might be nice if, as we sort of move, because these are special funds that are not sort of normally part of our regular budget that we follow. It might be nice to, once a month or at every board meeting, sort of see our progress towards, spending those funds and how we're doing that.
Ongoing tracking of that, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that would be really good. And I think, the more we pay attention, the faster we find if there's errors or things we want to do differently.
So I'll take that recommendation, and then how about a once a month update on our COVID related revenues and expenditures?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then I know we want to move on, Mr. Mora, but what are we doing with this presentation? Is it our directive to have a determination of a board policy or a board practice of a certain set threshold for our reserve that we know we can't get to in a year, but have a multi-year plan to get? I'd like to give the cabinet direction so they're moving us forward. We're all moving together.
So Dr. Goldman, that's a perfect segue to the next slide.
Go, Dave.
So next steps, we want to work with the budget subcommittee to develop formal policy and timelines. And then once we have that, then we'll actually take it to the board for a formal board policy approval. And so that segues now into my next topic, which is we would like to bring the budget subcommittee back. Dr. Silvers and I discussed, I think the week before Thanksgiving would be an opportune time for us all to meet. So next week I'll be sending out calendar surveys of what day that week works best for everybody, and then we can get on the calendar and have our first meeting.
I just want to be, I don't know if it was opportune or the right time where we have enough of our a few months, in the books from July to then to be able to really take a look at where we are in November. So maybe not opportune, but it will be a good time to do that.
And Dr. Silvers, who are the lucky two board members who volunteered for this committee?
That is Dr. Goldman and Ms. Canetta.
Okay. All right.
One more topic.
I'm anxious to dig in. This is exciting stuff. This is stuff I can understand, man. This is great.
David, did you have one more thing?
One last topic. I just wanted to
15
announce.
seconds or less, please.
It will be, I promise. Thank you, though. Just wanted to announce to the community that we are serving breakfast and lunch at Dana Middle School from 11:30 to 1. The last week we saw our numbers of students served between 385 and 400. So you can double that for a breakfast and a lunch. So almost 800 meals a day going out of Dana. So very pleased about that.
Wow, that's great.
Excellent.
And we are reimbursed for those by the federal government. So
we are reimbursed for those.
Spurs our costs. So actually, ironically, the more we have come, folks, the better we do. So come get your lunch for your kids, and everybody wins. Thank you,
And
Dave.
that's students 18 and under.
All right, we're going to move forward.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, David. From the Director of Student Support Services, Dr. Dougal.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to take this time to really thank the caregivers, parents, teachers, administrators, and Dr. Goldman, one of our board members, for joining us last night for our very first Special Education Leadership Collaborative. We really appreciated everyone taking the time to engage in this meaningful conversation on how we can best support our students, specifically during this distance learning time. It was great to hear from parents and our teachers, and now we have some critical information on what our next steps may be. As we move forward, though, with this collaborative work, I do want to make sure our focus will continue to align with the Wiseburn Unified School District's goals and strategic plan. For the community, this plan was approved by our board. It was vetted by multiple stakeholder groups, and it really embodies the purpose of our Special Education Leadership Collaborative. So just reminding everyone that these pillars will engage, empower, and elevate our students, and we want to make sure that that remains the focus of the work that we do. Also wanted to let the community members know that our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October 21st. We will be sending out a Zoom link and per request also an agenda in advance so folks are aware of what we will be discussing. So once again, just wanted to thank everyone for taking the time out of their busy days to join us, and we really appreciate the feedback that everyone is able to give. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dougal. Moving on to the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Dr. Harbach.
Hi, good evening. We are finishing our 4th week of school. It's hard to believe that we had such a big launch this year and so much work involved from parents and students and especially our staff. We think it's timely to send out a survey to our families to see how distance learning is working for their families. It'll be going out in the next few days. And again, it's always our commitment to have continuous feedback. We're trying to design this survey so we can repeat it throughout the year for comparison's sake. And of course, we'll always bring those results back to our teachers and our sites so that we can improve our practice with distance learning. And
can I ask a question,
yes.
Dr. Harbach? Will the survey include emotional health and well-being as well as curriculum, sort of the learning of the subject matter as well as the emotional, health response, whatever the proper term is for that?
Right, we haven't finished it, so we absolutely will include that. And we're also asking, what's working, what's not, and we do have several open-ended questions at the end too, so parents can provide more information to us. We also have an area where they can ask for us to reach out to them if they need a personal response to their survey.
The other component, of course, is the physical, like exercise, sort of getting outdoors, getting away from the screens and going outside.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of my observation of the community is at about 8 o'clock, there's no more people on the streets at all. The kids are all in the homes and the parents are all in homes too. If you come out again about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, there's people riding bikes, people playing basketball, people doing things. So people are definitely in their homes, I'm sure, involved in education, involved in distance learning.
And we so appreciate that. And so we're expecting a very strong response to the survey with so many people, attending to their kids and working on this with us. So we appreciate that.
Anyway, thank you.
We'll bring that data back to the board, of course, and share it with you as well.
And I mean, the time you said, I apologize.
We're hoping for next week.
Oh, wow, great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're close. I also, Roger, I want to respond to, you had brought up the questions about access. We have a very specific attendance protocol going in our district right now where we can ensure that if a child, we can identify very quickly if a child is participating in learning on any given day. So our staff is very in tune to this. They use certain codes to identify if the child did check in live or even online. And if a child is tagged as not participating in a day, that triggers a whole response at the school to find out what's going on with that family. We have reminder calls going and outreach, but I just want to guarantee to the board that we are ensuring that our children do have access. We have hotspots out for any family that did not have access and requested. We have 93 out right now. And we feel very strongly that our children are all participating. We have identified, right down to the number and the individual, any child that we feel might be at risk for not having access, we've addressed it immediately.
Great. Thank you for that
Okay.
update. Really appreciate it. It's such a critical component. Like I said earlier, if they don't have access, they're definitely not in the classroom. So thank you for the due diligence in monitoring that. Greatly appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
And you estimated 100 hotspots, pretty good with 93 needed. Wow, well done.
Dr. Harbach, is that everything? All right. From our superintendent, Dr. Silvers.
All right, thank you, Mr. Moore. I just have a couple items tonight. First, I want to thank Emma Martin. She's a former student who attended Peter Burnett School, now known as 138th Street. I was lucky enough to serve as her principal at Dana Middle School. I just want to share, she's demonstrated such great leadership and advocacy. I'm really proud of her, both in her support of the Black Lives Matter movement and initiative. Most recently, she's led the charge of the renaming of her former school. She would suggest naming the school after Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She informed me this afternoon that her petition has now received over 1,500 signatures, e-signatures, or followers. And I've asked that she be a part of the community advisory committee that will help support the renaming of the school. In terms of the naming in general, I do want to share, as many have shared, that I certainly understand and appreciate the passion and the input from the community. Right now, we have a school that's named after a street as a placeholder. We'll most definitely fix that as time and circumstances permit. But I do want to share with the board and our community that our focus right now is supporting our students and our community through COVID, through this pandemic that has impacted all of our lives. With that, we want to be thoughtful about, and methodical, about the change and the name change. And we want to make sure that we put the time, the effort, the energy, and the right effort and energy towards that name. So the final name will be with us for a long time, and so we want to take the time right now and in this next year to make the process right. So don't have exact specifics yet, but certainly we'll want to bring that to the board in the near future as to what the Community Advisory Committee will look like, how that will, and how we'll address the actual name change, certainly taking into consideration some of the comments that we've heard tonight. I also want to share that this week I was able to attend the SLC Back to School Night. And I want to just congratulate and thank Dr. Dogowitz and her team over at SLC for a very nice back to school night. And I know Dr. Dougal was able to join me for that back to school night. And I think it was the last of our schools that kind of got the school year started. And with that, Mr. Moore, nothing further for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Silvers. Moving on to the agenda, we have 3 sets of minutes for August 6th, 13th, and 20th. Can we have a motion for all 3?
I will motion. Wendy was good enough to explain to me why we have those particular minutes to approve tonight, so I get it.
All right. A
Take
second?
5.2 separately.
Sorry?
If we can take 5.2 separately.
Okay, so we will to 5.1 and 5.3. Can I have a motion change, Joanne?
Sure, yes. I'll
Second?
change the motion.
I'll second as well.
Wendy, would you like to do the roll call?
Yes, sorry about that. Mr. Benuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Yes, aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Mora?
Aye. So I'd like to call 5.2, which is special minutes for August 13th. Would you like a motion, please?
Motion that.
Second?
I don't know which one of us approved our motion.
I'm sorry, who's the second on this?
Who was the first?
Joanne was the first.
Neil was the second.
Neil's the second. All right. Roger, do you have a statement or you just want to vote differently?
I'm just going to vote differently on this one.
That's what I figured. Okay, so I'd like to call the motion, Wendy.
Yes. Mr. Benuelos?
I will abstain. I did not attend that meeting.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Yes, aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye. Thank you. Action items 6.1 to, I'm sorry. I'm scrolling too fast here. To 6.6. Would anyone like to pull any or do all 6 together?
All 6 together.
All 6 is fine.
You have a motion?
Motion?
I will second.
Okay, Nelson and Roger, thank you so much. Any questions?
Yes, a comment on 6.1. Eileen, I think this is largely your work. This is a really amazing piece of work. Congratulations, thank you. This is hours. I can't fathom the amount of hours that went into this. Thank you. I did have a question that are 2 questions. One was on actions related to distance learning, where we commented we bought Chromebooks for the students, and I'm wondering if anywhere in here we have any consideration of additional computers for teachers.
So we have purchased for teachers, and actually we've had to do some purchasing of laptops for staff that are also working at home. So as per need, we do come up, but the way, and Dave, you might speak to this, the way our lease works for the technology, we are still within our lease for our computers, for our laptops, for our teachers. So they seem to be in good repair, and we're making great progress with learning. So when we hear about things, we have 3 IT members who address it immediately and, you know, do their very best. So
Great, as long as
I want
to make sure the teachers are covered there.
Yes.
And then I know we have effectiveness oriented pupil learning loss strategies, and I'm wondering, are we able to actually learn or assess if there is learning? I mean, I'm sure in the environment we're having learning loss. Let's be real.
Yes, and I'm glad, you know, not to go on tonight. I know time's ticking, but we just finished. Actually, we're just finishing our early assessments that are going on in all grade levels. And the purchase of the new math STAR program for that testing in the lower grades was super helpful as part of our LCP. We will have those results finished probably Monday. Sarah Nitzos, as you know, is our coordinator and has been organizing that for online testing. First time our teachers did it, great success. So both in ELA and math, first grade all the way through 8th. So we are just completing that initial testing.
Thank you. I think it'd be great for us to see that in the future meeting. Just how are we doing? And this is, you know, this challenging time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Dr. Harbach, you mentioned something that we haven't actually talked about, so it's not part of the subject we're talking about right here, but that's to give a shout out to our IT folks who are supporting this distance learning. 3 people are supporting this entire distance learning effort for our district. And I don't know, I think I'd like, I'm going to have to admit, I'm not sure of all their names. I know 2, but I don't know the 3rd, so I don't want to say the other 2. We need to give a shout out to these guys, because I think we're taking a lot for granted here, that all the software, all the connectivity, and all the great work that's going on by the teachers and the students has an underlayment here of people who go unmentioned. It's kind of like a utility, right? When you plug in your coffee pot, you think it's going to work. So I would like, Dr. Silvers, if we could get their names read into the minutes maybe next time, and give them some particular appreciation for the work they're doing. It's way beyond the call that they probably signed up for.
Absolutely, and I would just say, I'll just say unofficially, we could bring it back, but Kwan, Jin, Sue, and Juan have been just tremendous. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't also recognize Sarah Nitzos, who, although she's not an IT person per se, has really done a tremendous job with the technology, the educational technology, and it takes many different talents to make this go. And with Eileen and Sarah, and then the IT team, that's what we need. So just,
and we have people like Shannon Tupper, I know, at 138th Street School that are supporting, and I don't know, Eileen, Dr. Harbach, who might be the other folks to call out besides Shannon.
We absolutely do. We do. We have Stephanie at Cabrillo. We are fortunate enough to, Kathy Pitluck has been taking Anza for us.
At Anza, yes.
Right. So we have great coverage at the sites too. We feel very fortunate.
I don't know, somehow I'd like to recognize that team, because I think it's a very strong and important team here, that they're all sort of separate and we count on them for so much. I'd like to recognize them as a team.
Okay, we can take care of that.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. I'd like to call the question 6.1 to 6.6. Wendy?
Mr. Ben Willows,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Canetta,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye. Moving on to action item 7.1, facilities, ratify 12-month lease with Mobile Modular for portable classroom at West 38th Street and
You have a motion, Israel?
Elementary School. Thank you, Nelson. Second?
I think this one's yours, Israel.
I'll second it. I know that I asked the question, do we need this portable when we don't have students on campus? And the moment they come back, we need to have this portable. So we don't have the luxury not to have it. So know that I did pursue this question right off the bat.
That's my deference on that one.
Israel, it's been one of your themes for as long as we've worked together.
Oh my
here,
gosh,
so,
yes.
yeah.
I'm not a fan of portables, absolutely. All right, any other questions before I call the question?
No.
All right, Wendy?
Mr. Ben Willows,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Canetta,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye. Moving on to action items fiscal, 8.1 to 8.4. Do I have a motion?
You
I
have a
would
motion.
like to discuss 8.3.
Okay, is it okay if we discuss it and then vote on all four?
Yes.
No, I would like to actually make a different motion than what's on the agenda. So if we could do
Okay,
that.
understood. Then we're going to motion 8.1, 8.2, and 8.4.
You have a
Who
motion.
originally motioned?
You have a motion?
Thank you, Nelson.
I'll second.
Thank you, Joanne. Wendy, you want to call that vote?
Yes, Mr. Ben Willows,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Actually, hang on. I'm sorry. I had a question. I apologize. Want to call it up. Bear with me. I apologize. I may not have a question. Have a note. Yeah, again, just the question on, I know we do this and I'm just unclear. It's just such a large amount. I need explanation. 113398 on the purchase orders. It's the in lieu of taxes. I believe we're reimbursed or that's a pass through. Dave, if I can get some clarity, please.
Can you scroll down, Wendy? Which
Thank
one is that?
Very bottom, 113398.
Oh, sure. So we are required, so based on ADA as a whole district, we have to pass through Da Vinci's ADA of their the proportion of their property taxes. And so whatever we pass through to Da Vinci in property taxes, the state backfills us.
Where do we see that?
So we'll see that on our state allocations every month, our state apportionments every month. So there's a whole background calculation. So we're showing, the state knows about how much, it's an estimate of how much ADA that we're going to have and how much property taxes we're going to have. And so they say, based on this calculation, you need to pass through each month this much in property taxes. At the end of the year, once the ADA has been settled, the state either gives us more money or we owe the state money based on how much we pass through to our charter schools.
This isn't a monthly amount though. This seems unusual.
No, it differs. So I think for the month of September, it might have been maybe 12%. So it differs every month. There's a calculation as to how much we pass through per month.
Well,
You know, and that could be something we present at a future board meeting where we can go through the list of each month and what the percentages are. So we can bring that back, Neil.
Thank you. I know we recently went through the budget and the audited. In the past, it's always evened out. So I trust you, and we should look at that. So thank you. Thanks, Lou. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
All right, so Wendy, if you could continue to call the question, 8.1, 8.3, 8.4.
Sure. So
8.3
Mr. Ben,
was not a part of that, right? 8.1,
Right.
2, 4.
Yeah.
so for 8.1, 8.2, and 8.4, Mr. Ben Willows,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Thank you. Aye.
Ms. Canetta,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye. All right, 8.3.
Yeah, so I requested to pull this one to consider it separately. I have a few questions. I'd like to have a conversation really around the accelerated reader. I know this is a program that we've utilized within the district extensively for many, many years. In fact, when my oldest son Eric was in first grade, and he's now in college, so it's a program that we've used many, many times. I do know there's some challenges with the accelerated reader. So I'd like to discuss how we can, if we were to move forward with accelerated reader, how we can better or revise the process of its utilization. And a couple of comments that I'd like to share and have a discussion on is, accelerated reader, it's put on by one manufacturer. I think it's Scholastic. So it's one publisher. I know as a parent, and I've received several comments from other parents, sometimes there's a lot of difficulties in finding the actual book that's an acceptable book for our students to read. So there's a limited section, and I know there's a lot of books, but sometimes it's very difficult to find that book. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to look at how those books are designated. And has the accelerated reader expanded their books that the students can read and subsequently take a test? I know it's been about 15 years or so that we've been using it. I'd like to know, have they made improvements or revisions to that?
They've added over 700 books a year. And this year, based on COVID funds, and it's truly a gift, we have Myon, which is the online digital library, which really culls the books to age appropriate levels for families to access, for students to access, that are aligned with the testing. So they have added about 700 a year. The past year they added over 1,000.
Excellent. And Eileen, what about the actual test taking process? Mm-hmm. I know different books have different numbers of questions, and I think several, depending on age appropriate or grade level reading levels, some tests have like 5 questions or so. And if the student misses one, that's an 80% and they pass. But if they miss 2, it's an all or nothing proposition, right? So the student has to start all over again, and they get 0 credit. For it, which could also be kind of a demoralizing effort. Mm-hmm. I took this test, and granted, I want the students to achieve and learn, of course, and memory retention, comprehension skills are critical, are important. But 5, going from 1 question to in 5 seems really drastic. I mean, is there an opportunity to maybe have a 10 question so that there's a little bit more flexibility and like partial credit on the points? I want to encourage students to read and not, in this case, discourage. Right. No, we agree. And the love of reading is first and foremost on this. We actually have an AR or a star reading team that we have a member from each school that meets together to determine how best to bring forward these programs and how to encourage the love of reading and how to, engage students in it. A little different this year in distance learning, but the questions are set by the company. That's not for us. We don't determine how many questions and that sort of thing. But what we do determine is how we will look at those outcomes as a teacher and as a staff. So we'll continue to work with the teams. I'm going to bring your questions back to the AR team or our reading team. It's made up mostly of our librarians, of course, and a teacher, Amy Glotz, over at Dana. So they've done a great job bringing in and encouraging reading, but we want to make sure the program's used correctly and not to diminish children's love of reading. I see what you're saying. I appreciate that. And similarly, if there's, and I really appreciate the fact that they've added 700 or 1,000 books. If there's a book that a child really wants to read, that's just, maybe their neighbor or somebody read the book and they're talking about this book and they really want to read this book, but it's just not on the list, and they can't test for it. Is there something that we can do to work together with our parents or our teachers to enable that student to read that book and somehow get credit for it just because it's not on the list? Then it's kind of a zero sum game proposition with that. Yet it's not encouraging that.
And I'll just share with you that at the middle school, there are options for children to do that and to turn in different response to reading with their teacher. So they have put that together at the middle school. We'll look for it at the elementaries too.
Okay.
Okay.
One other thing I'd like to take a look at is that, for example, there's some students that really read a lot of books, and that's awesome. I think it's wonderful. You know, they really get engaged with it. And let's just say that they've read for the course of the year and they've had their goal and they met 20 points. And maybe my understanding is not all inclusive here, but like, let's just say that they met their 20 points. I think the system allocates their next goal, and because they did such a great job in doing the 20 points, their next goal is like 30 points. Mm-hmm. And then the students, what I'm hearing, and that actually happened in the case with my boys, you know, our students, thank goodness, they're smart, they get it, they figure out the system, and in some cases, they won't read greater than the absolute minimum because it becomes like a punitive situation. Now, in order for them to meet their goal, they have to get to 30 points. Yeah. You know, they'd rather not do that. They'd rather just stop testing. And in some cases, they just don't test anymore because they don't want to go to 30 points as a requirement. So I'd really like for us to take a look at that, because it seems to me that it's somewhat punitive, you know, with it. If anything, I think it's it should be a little bit more of a collaborative. Like if they excelled in one, don't like overly excel it. Then it just tips the scales like too far to the right or left.
Yeah. And thank you for that. We recognize this as well. There are incentives going on for children that exceed or that sort of thing. We want to go back to not diminishing, but let me take this as wonderful feedback. Let me take this back to our team and we'll look at it. The last thing we want is for children to, you know, game the system or feel that they can't be recognized for their growth, and that, you know, the bar keeps getting set higher. So I know there are incentives. There's reading parties and popsicle parties that follow for kids that, you know, go over and above. So we'll look at those things as well.
And okay, thank you for that. The last comment that I have regarding this is, given that right now we're under the pandemic and COVID, how are students obtaining the books? Like, for example, all libraries in LA County are closed. So parents can't go to a library and check out a book. Our schools are closed and our libraries are closed. So how can we, let me rephrase that, how can we facilitate students obtaining a book to ensure that they're actually reading?
So we've offered MyOn, which is a digital library. They can access all books that are in the library that are connected to AR. So all those books have tests attached to them if they're interested in an AR test. They can also go through Libby, which is our public library system. That's a little more, we didn't want to rely on that because if a book is checked out, you have to wait for it and so forth. That is a free system, and all you need is a library card. And teachers have been instructing students on that if they're interested in going beyond MyOn and the digital library that we offer.
Okay. Okay. So given the questions, I mean, should we still consider looking at a 3-year contract with for these services with, I forget the name of the firm, but Renaissance Learning? Or should we be considering a 1-year extension? Because obviously I don't want to leave our students, and we've already started the school year with nothing. I mean, I'd like, and allow yourself to work with our group to see, is this still the right choice? Is it serving the need? Should we be looking at a 1-year? Because the recommendation that's before us is for a 3-year contract. Are we locked into a 3-year contract? Because I think it's $90,000 and $30,000 per year. Or should we be looking at more of a recommendation of a 1 year? That's part of the reason I wanted to consider this item separately.
Right, and we appreciate that. We can definitely do 1 year and review. This is a program that's been used, as you know, for a long time in our district. It offers more than just the AR test with the reading. It offers us a chance. They have tremendous reports that we access to understand where a child is with their reading levels. We also attach it to STAR, which is the initial test that goes in that tells us where a child's level is before they go into the AR system. So it has a couple of different components to it. And now we have STAR Math that offers that same data. So we can definitely go for a 1 year. It's not a problem, and we can reevaluate.
Okay. So, okay. Go ahead. I don't know if somebody else had another question.
Would it make sense to pull this for this period, do a review? I'm concerned that a 1 year may dramatically raise the price. I don't know. Maybe you can address that. And then pull it for next. Is there an issue with pulling it till next meeting where you have more data, answer these questions, and maybe, or 2 meetings and get an assessment of any competition. What other options do we have? Either way, I'm fine. I just want to throw that out.
Thank you. Dave, is there a downside to waiting a couple more weeks? No, I don't think so either.
I don't think so.
All right, let's wait.
And so let me understand, we're currently using this program, right?
We are.
We do have a program in place.
Right.
So Roger said something about having nothing. So we do have a program in place. It's just that we're not sure this is the one we want to, that we'd like to investigate other alternatives.
We have it, we need to keep it for this year. We
Okay.
do. The question is, should we have a 3-year commitment to our company,
Okay.
to this company?
Yeah, I get the 3-year commitment question. That's a good question. Yeah, I'm good.
So we're going to pull this item and go over some of the procedures behind test taking and so forth.
Yeah, and we'll bring it back.
At a future
We'll
meeting.
bring it back.
Great, thank you. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you looking
Thanks.
into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
I'm sorry, I was talking to myself. I was muted. I said there's one other option, and that's to change this to a 1-year contract approval, and then you guys move forward. Since it sounds like we're already into this year, is that correct?
We are. It expires October 1st, but I'm not recommending that we need to go forward with this program for the year. Our teachers are using it. It's a valid program for this year.
And that's a part of my comments as well for this year. I'm perfectly fine with it. It's something we've used it in the past. I think moving forward, that's what be the evaluation for. So if we want to approve for 1 year, perfectly fine with that as well.
Yeah, I think my recommendation would be to consider approving, because we're into the year already, approving this contract for a year and evaluate the program thereafter.
Does it change the pricing at all?
It will.
That I don't know. So initially when they submitted this proposal to us, it was a 3-year contract, all to be paid in year 1, the $90,000 all in 1 year. And I went back and I said, we're not going to do that. Could you split the payments up over 3 years? And they did, obviously. But if we go back and say we're only going to be interested in a 1-year contract, they certainly could raise the price. I don't know if they will, but they certainly might.
We have to guarantee the 3 years. So even if we start the 3-year program, we probably can't cancel it.
You know, a lot of these contracts have a 90-day or 60-day out with written notice, but I'd have to look at the contract language specifically for that.
Thank you.
Just
All right,
considering
so-
the circumstances, I'm wondering if we just pull this item and
Yeah,
bring it
that's what I was
back. We
going to
have time.
recommend. Agreed, Dr. Silver. So we're going to pull this for either 2 weeks from now, and you give you some time to research. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on
Agreed.
to consent items 9.1 to 9.9. Do we have a motion?
You have a motion, Israel?
Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. Any questions? No questions? Wendy, would you call a question?
Yes. Mr. Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Caneda?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Mora?
Aye. Moving on to action items personnel, we have 10.1 to 10.4. Motion?
I'll motion. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Roger. I will second myself. Any questions?
I wonder, do we want 10.3 on its own, or is it good enough to put it with everything?
Unless you want to discuss it and possibly make changes.
I don't necessarily want to make changes. I do want to discuss it.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. You mean go ahead and discuss it?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I mean, this is a new position for us, right? And I would like Dr. Silvers to talk about the position and the salary schedule that we're applying to it, and understand why we're doing it. I mean, I understand most of this, but I'd like to hear the whole package discussed.
Sure. And Wendy, if you can just click on so this item actually is the second of 2 items. The first one was at the last board meeting, which was the actual job description.
Right.
And in short, it's a certificated position to oversee human resources. So a certificated position means that the person has the ability to supervise both certificated and classified employees and can engage in negotiations in the certificated, with the certificated unit and with the classified unit. So that's why it would be a certificated position. At the assistant superintendent level, we already have that salary schedule with the current assistant superintendent. So it was just to stay consistent within what already exists.
And we're comfortable with this. You know, as we often look at the other districts in our South Bay area and, you know, figure out if we're, you know, in line, and it all sort of makes sense for the community as well as us as an individual school district. So I'm guessing that's been done as well.
It has been.
Yeah, thank you. No, this is a very important position, and I'm glad we're, you know, moving out to extend this sort of position in your cabinet, in our cabinet. And I look forward to, I think I volunteered to participate in interviews, so looking forward to that.
And Dr. Goldman, I think too, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. We're going to be partnering a lot, Joe. I love it.
I know it, Neil, it's just we're going to put our arms together here.
There you go. And this will be posted soon? It is? Where are we?
It is currently posted and closed today. The position actually closed today, the first, and so I know Eileen and myself will start looking through those applications in the next couple of days. I know Eileen's actually been doing some of that, and we could share some of the personnel side of it in closed session.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you. That's what I wanted to ask. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanne. Any other questions on personnel? Wendy, could you call the question 10.1 to 10.4?
Yes, Mr. Banuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Hi.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye. Any events or dates that we need to announce? None?
We're going to hear about some fundraisers because I think the different schools are doing like some restaurant fundraisers or different things. I don't know.
You know, I'll have to get those for you, Joanne, and I'll send it to the board. We'll go through all the newsletters. They all get released in the next, either Wednesday, a couple of them get released, and then Friday. So we can send some dates to you tomorrow in terms of the actual,
you know, I in the
restaurant night.
grand scope of things, it's you know, there's a lot going on. I understand that, but if somebody could do that would be great.
Of course.
All right. No further items. I will adjourn to closed. It is 8:55. How about we jump back on at 9:05? 10 minutes, guys.
Deal. Thank you.
And,
Thanks, everyone.
Wendy, the same one as we did earlier?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
And I
you.
think we only need Eileen.
Okay.
That's it. So everybody else, I think.
Okay.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
everybody. Good night.
Great evening.
Thank you, everyone.